world has changed, and a lot of research, scoping studies, meta-analysis, systematic reviews are being done using work that's available online. I recently did a systematic review actually on disclosure of sexual violence in Africa, and I used information or resources, published material that's available online. And most of the work that you can find online is either done in South Africa or it's work that's done by people based in the global north. So work that is done here in Africa is not exactly visible. And there's evidence to show that Africa produces only 0.7% of the world's research output, which is actually not true. We do a lot of research, but this research is not visible. And that says a lot of things about our capacity to do research. So that's one thing I wanted to say. Secondly, the fact that the research that's visible is done by people who are based in the north is a bit problematic for me, because I believe that we need to see research that's done by people who have lived experience of African childhood. They have grown here in Africa. They know what it means to be a child in Africa. And when they do this research, they can interpret it with that in mind, with a local or contextualized mind, and that produces the evidence that we desire to see. So less than 1% of the money that's spent on research, only 1%, less than 1% is spent on Africa. The rest of the money is spent on other countries. So there's very, very strong evidence that is not visible in research that is visible. And I have a problem with that, and I want us to talk about that in a bit more detail. So, yeah. Then another thing, of course, is that I wanted to highlight is there's one person who has written a lot of work on one of the papers he published is called From Africa to the World, and he writes about this notion of helicopter science, like people coming from outside Africa, they fly here and do research on Africa, specifically African children, and they take it out and do a lot of things with it, and sometimes without exactly giving credit to the local communities. So that there are so many things that underlie this kind of practice, but one of the things is the savior complex that motivates some of these scholars, but also there's a lot of injustice that happens in that process, what I would call epistemic injustice. I don't want to sound very philosophical, but yeah. The lack of skills is really what determines the evidence and how this evidence is going to be mobilized and shared with the rest of the world. So we need that community of practice that would build local research capacities to be able to do everything that we are talking about. He has raised an important point about visibility, but it's like a chicken and egg kind of situation. You cannot be visible unless you have the skills, and you cannot have the skills unless you're visible. So I work with Shimin on a journal. We are editors of a journal. It's called the International Journal of Child, Youth and Family Studies, and it's an open access journal, so anybody can submit and publish for free. And for the longest time, I've been really frustrated, especially by, I don't know, people from Africa. We call upon you guys we invite you to come and review manuscripts submitted by Africans, And most of the time, like 99.99% of the time, people decline. Nobody wants to review. So what does that mean? It means we are giving all the power to the other people to decide what gets published. So I just want to make that call to action that please participate, be visible. Because if you don't publish, if you just want to publish, nobody's going to review your manuscript and you'll never be visible. So when you submit your grant application and you have published in that area, that donor, the funder is going to recognize you already as an expert in that area. So you stand better chances of being funded compared with another person who is just coming into the field. They never published anything. So for us to be visible, for us to produce evidence that is going to be recognized, we need to publish. And I agree with you that publication is not the only way to disseminate knowledge. There are other ways. If you don't want to publish a journal article, you can publish an infographic, you can publish a comic story. There are so many ways of mobilizing knowledge. You just don't have to be stuck somewhere and saying, I've done my research, I know the facts, and I'm keeping them in my office in the shelf. So that one is not going to help anyone. So yes, we need evidence, we create evidence, we need the skills, and for us to be able to move forward, let's work together to build those skills that we need to become visible, to create the evidence that's recognized, and to inform policy in our governments.